If democracy is a religion for India, then parliament is its temple and elections are its biggest festival. Now, this festival of Indian democracy is making quite a buzz over few past days. There has been a motion, there has been a debate around a term that is one nation, one election. Today we are going to delve into the topic and look to see that what are the requirements that we are even thinking in the terms of conducting one nation, one election, or you can rather put in a way simultaneous elections. The need behind it, the logic behind it, whether it is feasible in the Indian context or not, the recommendations of few committees so that you can develop an overall idea about the topic. So if I say one nation, one election, as maybe there are different things, one nation, one ration card, one nation, one mobility card, all of these things. So similarly, it may be a kind of a misnomer thing. It may create a lot of confusion that whether the people of India who have been traditionally voting for state elections or general elections or for the Panchayati Raj elections, now they are going to vote only once, or will it be different things? So I would rather call it a simultaneous elections than terming it a one nation, one elections. You can call it by the different name, but what the logic here is to conduct one poll, and that will be conducting the voting for all the levels of the elections. So in this context, let's see the present election apparatus of India. So we have an election commission of India which conducts the elections for the Lok Sabha elections, that is the parliament, house of people, then the Rajya Sabha elections, the elections for the President of India, elections for the post of Vice President of India. These are certain elections along with the elections for the legislative assemblies of the states. These are the elections which are conducted by the Election Commission of India. There is another body, the State Election Commission, which has been formulated by the 73rd Amendment Act, and it is tasked with a responsibility to conduct the elections for local self-government, which may include municipality and Panchayati Raj institutions. So these are the two election machineries of India. Now, what are the laws, what are the legal provisions which contains the provisions for conduct of the elections? Basically, there are two sets of it. One is the Constitution of India, which gives this mandate of conducting a timely election and free and fair elections on the basis of universal adult suffrage to the Election Commission of India. It is Article 324 of the Constitution of India that gives this power of control and superintendence of the elections to the Election Commission of India, and Article 326 of the Constitution underlines the principle of universal adult suffrage. That is the article wherein we can say all of the citizens rather of India who are above 18 years of age are empowered to get themselves registered in the electoral list, and thereby they are eligible to vote. So right to vote is being made a constitutional right of every citizen of India. Apart from it, there is two specific acts which in detail talks about the various provisions before the conduct of the election, the pre-poll preparation practices, and actual conduct of the polling, and even to the returning of the winning candidates. So those two laws are Representation of People's Act 1950 and Representation of People's Act 1951. We are going to delve into the topic, and we have to see that in this context, what are the constitutional provisions can simultaneous election, or as you call one nation, one election, can be conducted in the given constitutional framework or not. What the legal expert, what the Law Commission of India, what the parliamentary panel has to say about it. But let's basically see, has there been any such situation wherein the simultaneous election was a norm into India? Now you know that our constitution was made effective on 26th of January 1950. But during that point of time, there was no election conducted. The first general election in India was conducted during late 1951 and early 1952. So that we refer is the first general election of 1952. During that time, the simultaneous elections were conducted for the Union Parliament and for the legislature of all the states. After that, it was again in 1957 and 1962 when these simultaneous elections were made possible. But after 1967, there has been dissolution of certain state governments. Not only the state government, the House of People has also been prematurely dissolved by various occasions. Now here in this context, it was not possible to conduct the simultaneous elections of the Lok Sabha and along with together with the state legislative assembly, what you call is Vidhan Sabha. So this trend of simultaneous elections kept on breaking and breaking, and now we are at a situation when we have elections multiple times in an year. Now what are the provisions with regard to that? What does our Constitution of India say, and what is the role of Election Commission? Here let's see. So Article 83 of the Constitution of India says that the tenure of House of People shall be 5 years. House of People. So our Lok Sabha, our parliament consists of 2 houses. You would be better knowing that. The one of the house is called Lok Sabha. It is indeed also referred as House of People. Originally they were referred as a House of People, but later the Hindi names were included in 1954. So House of People becomes Lok Sabha and Council of State becomes Rajya Sabha in Hindi. So the tenure of House of People shall be of 5 years. This is the ideal tenure, and this tenure is counted from the date. Now this 5 years shall be counted from the date when the Lok Sabha is conducting its first sitting. When the Lok Sabha is conducting its first sitting from the date after the fresh election has been conducted. So after the election up to the general election has been conducted to the House of People, they will first meet, and from that day the 5 years is calculated. That is the tenure of the Lok Sabha. Now President of India has also got a power to prematurely dissolve. Now you know that President of India has multiple of the powers with regard to legislature. He can summon the sessions of the parliament, he can prorogue the sessions of the parliament, and also he can dissolve. So even if there is a possibility that the Lok Sabha can be dissolved prematurely by the President of India. This is first. Secondly, a similar provision is lying for the State Legislative Assembly. So generally the tenure of State Legislative Assembly as per Article 172 is 5 years, but they can also be prematurely dissolved by Governor. Now these are the 2 articles which are permitting for the premature dissolution of the Lok Sabha as well as the Vidhan Sabha, that is the State Legislative Assembly. Herein there is a possibility that even today you can conduct the simultaneous election, but what if tomorrow one of the assembly gets dissolved prematurely even before 5 years? So they may not be available for the elections when the overall elections of the country is going to be conducted. Let's understand for this moment that suppose in 2024 the simultaneous elections are conducted for all of the state legislative assemblies and also for the Lok Sabha. Then it is quite possible that one of the state assembly may be dissolved in coming 1 or 2 years. The president rule under Article 356 may be applied. Then what happens then? The new legislative assembly which will be constituted in that state will again go for 5 years. So this may stretch from the new, ideally it should have been in 2029 for every state and legislative assembly, and the union parliament should have been again went into the election together. But now again, since there was one of the state wherein premature dissolution of the legislative assembly was done, so this trend can be broken. Now it is not only important to conduct the simultaneous election, but it is also important, and I would say rather it is more important, to ensure that simultaneous election is conducted every 5 years at a fixed interval. Now what are the challenges herein? Firstly, let's understand that why do we need the simultaneous elections? But before that, there are 2 other provisions that we need to look, that apart from the constitutional positions, there is this Representation of People Act, which under 14 and 15 section says that Election Commission can only announce the notification of poll just 6 months before the expiry of the tenure of any legislative assembly or the Lok Sabha. They cannot announce the notification more than 6 months ago. So this is also casting a limitation upon the Election Commission. However, Election Commission at different point of time has given a clarity that as per the legal, now very recently also the present Chief Election Commissioner of India, when he was asked about the preparedness of Election Commission, whether they are capable to hold simultaneous elections or not, so he quite admittedly told that as per the legal provisions, they are able to conduct the elections in whatever manner they are. And Election Commission previously have also opined that they will be willing and they are more capable to conduct the simultaneous election. So there is no doubt in regard to the capacity of the election commission to conduct. So the first problem is sorted. Now we will see that what are the other issues and wherein we need to change. But before that, let's first understand that why do we need to change the present system? That what is the problem in the existing way what we are going through? What is the problem in the present system of elections? Elections after elections, election mode in which India is continuously in. So let's see that why it is there is a desirability that we can conduct the elections. First and most important is the expenditure. Expenditure of the people, money of the people of India, expenditure from the exchequer. We pay taxes for the welfare, not for the elections every time. So if you see that the money involved, if you go by the official record, so how it is calculated, on an average, you will find that to conduct an election to the Lok Sabha, around 4,000 crore rupees are spent every 5 years. So once the election is conducted for the Lok Sabha, 4,000 crore rupees is taken out of the exchequer of India. Then again, if you consider election cost to be conducted, now this is the official estimate I am talking about. This is the burden on the public's money. This is the burden which have been put upon the government fund. I am not talking about the money involved by the political parties, the role of money and muscle power. We will come to that later on. But let's now understand that it's costing us around 4,000 crore rupees to conduct the election of Lok Sabha at once. Now tomorrow, if after 1 or 2 years Lok Sabha gets prematurely dissolved, so that will additionally incur 4 or 5,000 rupees again. For a state assembly, it may cost from somewhere around 300 crore if you take an example, a benchmark of states like Gujarat then. So this is the official records. Now how this funding is divided for this election to the government of India? This election of the Lok Sabha, 100% cost is borne by the union government. For election to the Vidhan Sabha, it's shared, the 100% is shared 50% by union government and 50% by the state government. For elections to the Panchayati Raj institution, 100% fund is borne by the state government. So come what may, whatever the government may be, ultimately it is the public money which is going out. This is the first. This is why we need simultaneous election in the state. First point being the cost of expenditure which is incurred by the exchequer of India on conducting elections every time. Now this may look like 3,000 crore for a country which is earning around a lakh from its GST, a lakh crore from the GST itself. So it may not be a big deal. But big deal is this: the involvement of money and muscle power to appease the voters. If you go by an estimate published by one of the NGOs, it says around 55,000 crore rupees were spent during the 2019 general elections of the Lok Sabha. Now most of this were informal expenditure. These 55,000 crores, out of that only 4,000 to 5,000 crore is the expenditure which is incurred on conducting elections. Where are the most of money going? So around 20 to 25% of it, around 12 to 15,000 crore was the cash which were directly given to voter. So now consider a situation when every 1 year there are 4 or 5 elections and this kinds of magnitude of money trading and use of money in a democratic process of election is being done. 20 to 25% directly as a cash given to the voters. Now next 30 to 35% which were done on the publicity, the campaigns of the elections, the star campaigners reaching to your constituency by the helicopters. So this is another problem. So if you conduct elections, so these kinds of involvement of money may be only done once in the 5 years, not every year at 4 or 5 times in every year. This is the second thing. Why do we want the simultaneous elections? Thirdly, if you have to see, it may reduce the burden on the security forces. So every time the election is announced, it is the duty of the security forces, and they are redeployed and deployed again after elections, which deviate them from their critical functions of security. Mind you, these paramilitary forces have the specific purposes for what they have been created. Elections may be one of the duties they perform, but that is not the sole duty. So if every year there are 4 or 5 elections, the battalion has to be moved from Bihar to UP, from UP to Gujarat, Gujarat to Madhya Pradesh. So this may lead to fatigue and tiring of the security forces also. So if elections are conducted throughout the country at once, they may be better aligned and the other time can be dedicated to their own security purpose or their own critical functions. This is another reason. That is why we need simultaneous election in the country. Moving ahead, now there is a report which is published by the departmentally related standing committee, and earlier there is also the report which is released by Niti Aayog. So Mr. Vivek Devarai was behind the draft of this report, and he has released on the behalf of Niti Aayog, and that note itself has recognized that India is always on the election mode. Let's see that with this analysis. There is a graph which indicates that how many times within the span of 6 months and how many elections we have conducted. For example, from January to June 2017, there were 5 elections. From July 17 to December 17, there were 2 elections. From January 2018 to June 2018, there were 4 elections in the country. From July 2018 to December 2018, again there were 4 elections. From Jan 2019 to June 2019, there were again 5 elections. So this ratio of 4 to 5 you can see. And this has been quite again reiterated by the report of the parliamentary departmentally related standing committee of the Rajya Sabha. And it says on an average within a tenure of 5 years, if you calculate the span of 5 years, so every year there is 5 to 7 elections in any state which is conducted in India. Now this always India is in the election mode, and what is the problem with being in this election mode is the jeopardization of whole policies. You know that before announcing the election schedule, Election Commission of India also releases the Model Code of Conduct. Model Code of Conduct says no new welfare policies can be initiated by the party in power which is at the government. The purpose of it is very clear. That party in power is not abusing their authority to appease the voter by rolling out the welfare populist measures just before the elections. So the purpose of Model Code of Conduct is there for its own, that is serving its purpose. But now what is happening due to the frequent application of Model Code of Conduct, that we have already seen in an year, if there are 4 to 5 elections, for max 4 to 5 months can go into this Model Code of Conduct. The welfare policies may be stalled for it. Not even the new welfare policies are stalled. It is also found that the whole administrative machinery will be running behind the conduct of that election. So not only the new policies are stalled, even if the existing policies which were there, they are also derailed from their implementation. So this creates a problem of a policy paralysis. Secondly, if there are frequent elections, you will find that in governance, the government who is in power, they are more inclined to launch short-term populist policies rather shifting their focus more toward the governance and launching a long-term public-oriented policies. So whenever the elections will be announced, the government will launch certain policies, or even just anticipating the announcement of the election, government time and again are launching certain policies just to appease. Now I'm not criticizing any particular government. This may be the case with any political party in any state, irrespective of their party. So every party does this. This we do not want. This is not for what we are electing the government. We are electing the government for better governance. These are certain reasons for which we want that there should be simultaneous elections. If you ask from a citizen's point of view, why simultaneous election is desirable? If you happen to vote and you are working people, there may be occasions when you are working remotely and you have your hometown at different place. It may not be feasible for you to every time seek a leave from the office and go for voting for 4 or 5 days, because it may also take certain time to travel. So once it is done, you can afford and you can exercise your voting right. So this reduces the voter turnout, and especially in youth age when people are occupied in economic activities. So they cannot simply leave economic activities and go for voting. If elections are conducted once in every 5 years and simultaneously for state as well as the union, then it was quite possible that people would have participated with more zeal and enthusiasm. These are certain reasons for which we want that there should be simultaneous elections. But there are still certain arguments. that says the present system as it is going with the premature dissolutions, or even if the legislative assemblies are continuing for 5 years, separately their elections are conducted. The manner, the iterative thing, the thing which is being continued should continue. What are those arguments? Let's see that also. Firstly, that when we contest elections, or whenever an election is contested, there are certain issues associated around it. If the elections are being contested in the state of Bihar, so more emphasis will be given to the state specific issue. If the elections are contested in UP, so the more emphasis will be given to the UP associated issues. But if you happen to conduct elections on a pan-India level, so there may be one or two national issues which may shape up the whole electoral campaign. In this context, the regional and the smaller issues tend to be get neglected. Now, this may people also cite that conduction of the simultaneous elections, or what you call is one nation, one election, is also against the federal feature of the Constitution of India. Why is it so? Because states and union are different organizations. They are the different tiers of the government. In various aspects, they function autonomously. Their issues may be different, their working may be different, then why the elections may be same for everyone? Moving ahead, it also says that there are certain logistical issues, not only the legal issues which we will see later on, but apart from the legal issues, there are certain logistical issues. Now, if an election is conducted, so you say there are almost 7 lakh polling booths simply, which has to be arranged for conduction of elections to the Lok Sabha. Now, if elections to the Lok Sabha is conducted, and along with them, the state elections are also coinciding, or for that matter, you can imagine if there are absolutely one nation, one election, then Panchayati Raj elections are also coinciding. So each person will require to vote for 3. Already, if you see, if you go to vote for Panchayati Raj, you have to choose for 3 tiers of the government. So 3 voting you have to do there, 3 to 4 vote you have to do poll there. Then additionally, there will be 2 votes, one for MLAs, one for MPs. So a voter once go to the voter polling booth, in case of simultaneous election, he will require to vote multiple times, 4 to 5 times. That will also require 4 to 5 EVMs also for single booth. How are we going to arrange that much amount of EVMs? Their transportation, their storage, creation of more and more strong rooms, their upkeep of security is also an issue. So if simultaneous elections are conducted, all of these things have to be arranged at one go, where we will recruit the staffs for it. Now, even if we are conducting the election in different phases, we are already in the shortage, so we have to call the teachers or professors from the school. So tomorrow, if more and more polling booths are made just to accommodate the different simultaneous elections all clubbed together, then how are we going to arrange all of this staff together at one place? That may be a big logistical issue. Apart from it, if the votings are conducted at a regular interval, so this may create a kind of the checks, regular accountability of the party in power. So if a party has won the national election and they are coming again after 2 years before any state voters, so it may act as a kind of the validation of the policies they are taking at the union level. So it may create additional layer of accountability. If you are conducting simultaneous elections, so people will come before you, they will ask for vote, and for 5 years, tata bye-bye, they will again not be seen anywhere. Now, at least after during various elections, they are seen coming and facing people of the fixed or regular intervals. So this element may be reduced. The regular accountability of the government may reduce if the simultaneous election is conducted. Now, next point is that if simultaneous election is conducted throughout the territory of India, pan-India level, so it might be that one phase has become so popular, it may sweep up and it may influence all the voting behavior, and it may neglect the issues, rather than the polls will be contested on a single individual face by projecting a particular face, larger than life image of the particular face. So it will become more of a kind of the presidential system where election is contested behind one person and his policies. The smaller issues, the electoral issues will be neglected. So these are certain things that says we can go with the present system. There is no harm in that, and it is rather best suited. Now we have seen both the sides of the coin. Why there should be simultaneous elections? Why not there should be simultaneous elections? But the question of the fact is, can there be simultaneous elections or not? Is the law of India permitting that? Is the Constitution of India permitting the same? So let's see what are the legal provisions with regards to that, what it has to say. Now such a provision has been in detail analyzed by the Law Commission of India in its 178 report, which is led by Justice B.P. Jeevan Reddy. Law Commission of India in detail has scrutinized this notion of conducting simultaneous elections. However, Law Commission favored the conduct of simultaneous election, but it also noted that the simultaneous elections cannot be conducted as per the present legal regime, present constitutional framework. It requires certain changes. It requires changes in laws, which may include the Constitution of India. It may also require changes in the Representation of People's Act and also the rules of procedure of conduct of the Lok Sabha and the Legislative Assembly. What are the changes which has been suggested by the Law Commission of India? Law Commission of India has mooted three alternatives, if not one. The Law Commission of India says if you have to conduct simultaneous election in one go throughout the territory of India, then firstly there is option 1, that it has noted that once the general election to the Lok Sabha is conducted, there is 4 or 5 state legislative assembly elections which is coinciding with them. So in the coming year, when there will be 2024 elections, so 4 and 5 state assembly will also conduct their elections together. Now remaining 4 or 5 will be announced just 6 or 7 months after the conduct of the general election, and 4 and 5 are conducted just before the general elections, 5-6 months gap, right? So the Law Commission of India says through a political consensus, we can increase and decrease the tenure of these legislative assembly which are just near to the elections of the Lok Sabha and make it a simultaneous elections. However, if the option 1 is not agreed, Law Commission of India has mooted for the second options. For it says, along with the general assembly, general election to the House of People, to the Lok Sabha, club the assembly elections of half of the state, and after 2.5 years conduct the elections for the remaining half of the legislative assembly. So you will have a simultaneous election in 2 different phases. This is the second alternative which is suggested by the Law Commission of India. The third option, which is a more it seems more pragmatic, it seems more practicable, and it seems more easy, is that Law Commission of India says if at all simultaneous elections cannot be conducted for a House of People and assemblies of the state, then what we can do is that in a calendar year there are 4 to 5 elections which are listed, so at least conduct all those elections together. So at least at max you will have 5 elections over 5 years. So these are the 3 suggestions which have been given by the Law Commission of India. Now the Law Commission of India has also noted that once you are able to conduct the elections to the Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha simultaneously, then could again be a problem tomorrow because of the premature dissolution of the Lok Sabha as well as the State Legislative Assembly. So in order to increase the longevity of those houses, Law Commission of India has given certain suggestion. It says if there is a no confidence motion which has to be passed against any government, that no confidence motion should be a constructive no confidence motion actually. For example, if presently a no confidence motion is passed against a government, that government falls. There is no guarantee that there is a confidence in another alternative government or not. So Law Commission of India has recommended to change this rule. Law Commission of India says a no confidence motion shall actually be passed only if there is an alternative confidence in any other government. So if a BJP government is falling, the Congress government must prove the confidence, then only no confidence motion would be considered passed, right? So this is first, because this way you give more longevity to the government, more longevity to the tenure of the Lok Sabha. There will be less chances of premature dissolution. Secondly, the second opinion, what it says, in case of a hung assembly or premature dissolution, so in case any state assembly is facing, is not giving the complete or clear mandate to any political party, then president rule can be applied, but there is a constitutional limitation. It cannot be applied for more than 3 years. After 3 years, there has to be an election for sure. So what happens in the case of a mid-term elections? Law Commission of India says, in case of midterm election, the party which comes to power should not be given a 5-year tenure, rather only the remaining tenure, so that the continuity of simultaneous elections are not broken off. These are certain recommendations which are given by the Law Commission of India. A similar set of recommendation has been given that how we can ensure that there is a simultaneous election. So this recommendation is given by departmentally related standing committee of Rajya Sabha on personal, public grievance, law and justice. So actually these are the recommendations which are given in 2015. That says what happens. Firstly, it has suggested to conduct simultaneous election in 2 phases. The similar which Law Commission of India has recommended. Then it has also talked about giving a fixed tenure, fixed term to the parliament, and how it can be given, that a no confidence motion, if it has to be passed, it would be again a constructive no confidence motion. And if a premature dissolution of the Lok Sabha has to be done, now present situation says, present provision says, a Lok Sabha can be dissolved prematurely by the president on the recommendation of the Council of Ministers. So simply whenever government wants, Lok Sabha can be dissolved. But this recommendation of the parliamentary committee says a premature dissolution of the Lok Sabha can only be done if it is supported by a motion of 2/3 majority of the Lok Sabha. So this will be hard to achieve. This means Lok Sabha may not be dissolved as frequent as it can be now. Now, apart from it, the committee also says that let's fix a date for starting of the Lok Sabha session, as it happens in the countries like US. In US, there is a date which is fixed for the election of the president. There is a date which is fixed for the taking charge of the new president. Every year election will happen on that day only. So this committee of the parliament also says, let's fix a date from which the session of the Lok Sabha will start and it will terminate after 5 years. So there is no change in this particular date. And in case there is a premature dissolution and only shorter duration is left, then for that intermittent period, president can run administration with the support of a caretaker government. However, it may not seem too feasible, as it is against the parliamentary system of government, where government is responsible to the Lok Sabha. When there is no Lok Sabha, there has to be no government. Government has to command the majority in the Lok Sabha. But however, these are certain recommendations through which we can ensure that there is a longevity and there is no intermittent or sporadic dissolutions of the Lok Sabha. This means we can ensure the continuity, and hence this is the first step in reaching towards the notion of one nation, one election. Now, on this proposal, the committee has consulted, the same departmentally related standing committee has sought the opinion of various stakeholders, meaning various political parties. Let's see what each one of them, some of them has supported the idea in principle, some of them has supported the idea, but quoting certain difficulties, and yet there are certain parties which are mostly the national parties or bigger parties, they have absolutely rejected the ideas. For example, Trinamool Congress, All India Majlis, this is AIMIM, this has also rejected the idea, right? This has also rejected the idea of one nation, one election. The Communist Party of India has rejected the idea. Indian National Congress has also rejected the idea. Nationalist Congress Party has also termed it unfeasible and hence completely rejected the idea. This is the consultation which was done by departmentally related standing committee before presenting out its recommendation. Now, a different committee has been formed by the government. The government of India has recently, in this month itself, appointed a committee under the former President of India, Shri Ramnath Kovind, to consult various stakeholders and give a report on the issue whether one nation, one election is feasible to be conducted in India. Now, after this committee presents the report, this will be debated in the parliament and necessary legal actions would be taken, whatever or if it ever required. This committee has already held its first ever meeting and it is under the process of bringing out this report. Now, so far we have seen various issues which is concerned with the one nation, one election. The rest depends upon how it is shaped up in the parliament. That whether the constitution is amended, which is of course it will be required to amend the constitution for the premature dissolution of the state legislative assembly. The legal framework, including the Representation of People Act, will be changed. So we will be discussing about all those changes as soon as it happens. Till then, stay tuned. and stay updated. We will try to bring out more content as the things unfold in this journey of one nation, one election. I hope you have got a fair bit of idea. For further such videos, stay tuned to the Level Up IAS channel. Thank you.